Hi guys, it's Kristy Marks. I'm alone today. I'm doing a little tidbit called Kristy's Insights. Usually I'm here with my husband Dan, and we discuss our family, our life, insights, challenges, day-to-day stuff, and how we manage life generally with the world today. 4 kids, a dog, running businesses, everything. So Dan had this idea for a podcast a little while ago, and it coincided with me going away. Uh, and he said to me the night before I left, I have something I want you to think about. I want to do a podcast. And I thought to myself, oh, here we go again, one of Dan's ideas. But as I started thinking about it, uh, a lot of people have said to me in the past, you should write a book. You know, you have 4 kids. How do you manage all the things that we've spoken about before? But it really resonated with me, particularly as I was going away. And it, I was going to Singapore. My best friend, who I've known for 35 years, moved to Singapore at the end of last year. And I made the promise to her and myself that I would go and visit her each year while she was there. She's on a 3-year posting over there. So I had made the decision that I would go and visit her, and I was going all by myself, all on my own, and leaving Dan with the kids, leaving everything behind, which I've never done before. It was pretty terrifying. But as I was sitting at the airport waiting for my flight, I started thinking about it, and I wrote down a few of my thoughts. And it mostly revolved around mum guilt versus self-care. And we've spoken about self-care before on the podcast, but this one is very personal for me, particularly around the mum guilt and the way mums think about looking after themselves. So I'm going to take myself back to sitting at the airport and waiting for my flights, and a few of my musings here. So I've been a mum for 12 years and a stay-at-home mum for most of that time. Over those years, I had 4 children under 6 years old. And during my many years at home, my world was taken up with nappy changes, mother's group, late nights, early mornings, night feedings, giggle and wiggle at the library, play group, organised activities, and more recently, sport, and more sport. We're sport obsessed in our house. My life was totally given over to my children. I was the snack bitch, the shoulder to cry on, the person to hit during a tantrum, the safe space, the one that could ease all their pain with a single murmur in their ear. And I hadn't thought until recently, who am I if I'm not their mum? Who was I before these tiny humans came into my life? You know, can I get her back? Do I want her back? And I spoke to a wonderful friend and colleague about it recently, and she put it perfectly. When you become a mum, you put the other parts of your personality in the back of the wardrobe, just like you would with your winter clothes when in summer. And now I'm getting to that stage where I'm looking to get that outfit back out. I'm looking to get those parts of my personality back out because I have space. I have the ability to look at who I am and who I want to be. The outfit hasn't changed or the personality hasn't changed, but I have. I have to get it out, dust it off, and give it a whirl. So in terms of my personality, I'm the life of the party. I crave people and human contact. And last year I had a significant birthday, and I had a party, and Dan said a few words at the party, and he said, Kristy lights up in a room full of people that she loves. And I love my people, and I love them with all of my heart. Uh, but I often struggle with imposter syndrome, which is a terrible folly of most women. Uh, you know, should I be here? I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm only a mum. And I've said that to myself a lot of times. I'm just a stay-at-home mum, or when I'm talking to people, I'm just this or I'm just that. And it's interesting. I have found that now that I have the space, I'm not just a mum. I'm not just a stay-at-home mum. I am a mum. It doesn't define my personality, but for a very long time, it was a large portion of my definition. Over the past few years, as my children have grown, our youngest is now 6. They are less reliant on me, and my eldest is 12, and he's seeking his independence. But it's interesting, still, every single night, they all want me to lie with them in their beds. We might talk, we might not, we might have a little cuddle, we might not, but always, always we have a connection. Each of them has a special way that I say goodnight to them. It's very personalized, and they crave that. And I crave it too. Sometimes I don't really want to do it because I'm tired. But as my mum recently said, you are their anchor. So and I get quite emotional when I talk about it. But as they grow, so do I. And it begs the question from me, who do I want to be going forward? Where do I want to focus my attention? Who do I want to be now that I have the space to think about that outside of that baby haze? I'm taking the opportunity to delve deeper into myself and look at my habits, the things that drive me, what am I passionate about, and of course the big thing that fuels most decisions, how can I support my family in the best possible way. And it's interesting, I'd always thought, having the 4 kids, people often ask me, when are you going back to work? And I've been very, very fortunate to be able to stay at home with my children and to be able to be there for all of those big things in their lives. And I always thought to myself, when my youngest started school, I would have a gap year, for want of a better term. I kind of made it up. You know, you go on a gap year after you finish 12 to find yourself. And I wanted this gap year to be about me, finding myself, finding my not my new self, but myself outside of my kids. And this year has been really great for me in that regard. And one thing I've been really focusing on is self-care. And Dan and I have spoken about this in previous podcasts. It's such an important part of my routine. It's ingrained in my habits. But for a very long time, it wasn't. I felt guilt every single time I left my precious little babies. What if they needed me? What if I wasn't there when they needed me the most? What if something happened? And I think as mothers, we sometimes wrongly believe that no one else can do what we do. But in reality, heaps of people do it and have done for many, many years before us. Dads do it every day. Carers do it every day. Grandparents have done and continue to do so every single day. Friends who have children have done it too. Friends that don't have children can do all the things that the mothers can do. And I think the big things that I've realized over my years of being a mother is that all of these people can do it, but they may well do it differently to how I do it. And that's okay. It's a good thing to expose your children to difference, for them to understand that there are other people that can care for them and love them just as much as their parents. I also think it builds resilience in children, and they actually learn to appreciate you more than ever before if others care for them. I continue to work around my children when it comes to my self-care. I ensure I get up early to complete my yoga and meditation practice each day. I get ready for the day before they wake up. I go to the gym during school hours or when Dan can be at home. And I've really made that a focus to be able to manage my mum guilt. and my self-care. It's a very difficult balance. It's interesting. One evening recently, I wasn't feeling well, and so I asked Dan to stay at home the following morning, and I knew I needed to sleep in. And then the next evening, I asked him to do it again, and I think it almost blew his head off. I'm not usually like that. I don't normally ask for help. I just push through, but I'm changing. I'm changing because I realize I need to look after myself to be able to function not only as my role as a mother and as a wife, but also in my role as a human. So, for all of you out there who are listening who aren't mothers, I think this still resonates. We need to look after ourselves in order to be able to function as human beings. Otherwise, cracks start to appear and if we don't care for ourselves. I think as a mother, when you're in the haze of newborns and babies, and for me, that was a very long time, we don't have the time. We don't think we have the time to be able to do that, particularly when our bubs are really small, and if we're breastfeeding or even if we're bottle feeding, and we have that, I did very much so, that thing that I spoke about before, no one else can do this except for me. Looking back, if I could have spoken to my newborn Hayes self, I wouldn't have listened or even understood that at the end of this tunnel, there was a functioning human being that actually looked pretty similar to pre-child Kristy, and she was waiting for me at the end of this tunnel. And it's kind of just like when you try to explain what childbirth is going to be like to a pregnant woman. They don't understand. And if you're in that newborn haze, you don't see yourself as a parent of large children. You don't see yourself as a parent of a preteen. But that's okay. That's not what you're supposed to be doing right then. But now that I've come through, and it's interesting thinking about seeing myself as a parent of older kids. People often say to you when you have children, "Oh, isn't it a lovely age?" But every single age has been lovely, and I've enjoyed my children at every single age. When they first roll over, when they first laugh, when they first give their first smile, even, and then when as they grow, they start walking and talking and reading and playing sport, and you start to have these really deep and meaningful conversations with your kids and be able to explain life to them a bit more. And my sister-in-law actually quite often says to her kids, "It's my job to make you a functioning human being, a kind human being." I think that's a really important thing to say to your kids. My job is not to be your slave. It's not to be your, a pain in your bottom. It's actually to make you a human being and a functioning human being who will eventually be a great part of society. So as I sat there in waiting for my plane to Singapore, all of these things started rolling around my head, and I actually thought that doing a podcast would be a great idea because I have so many insights to give from my parenting, from my life, and so while I was sitting there waiting to see my best friend of 35 years with the support of my husband, who was going to do all of the things that I normally would do, maybe a little bit differently, but they were going to get done. And I knew I was heading off to Singapore, knowing that he would provide absolutely everything my children needed for the next 6 days. And I would get to spend some precious, precious time with a friend that over the last 12 years, our friendship has changed. But she has helped me as I transitioned into motherhood, and who loves my kids. And that's such a blessing that I have such great friends who love my kids like I do. But as I was sitting there, a lot of our time that we've spent together over the last 12 years has been with me in my mother role because the kids are there, or me as in my role as a wife for the last, or girlfriend for the last 20 years. I got to visit her as Kristy, not as somebody's mum, not as somebody's wife. I went to Singapore as myself. And not that I'm not saying that I'm two different people, but I just want to point out that you can be a mum and you can also be yourself. So, and I knew that when I returned from Singapore, I would have a full heart from all the time I spent on myself. And but I knew that the minute I saw my kids and I saw Dan, I'd have a full heart as well, because they'd greet me with open arms. And in Singapore, it was a very different, very different. Looking back on my time in Singapore, rooftop bars and going out for beautiful meals and not having to worry about getting the kids out the door and getting the kids sorted and, oh my gosh, it's dinner time and bedtime. It was just about doing what I wanted to do, doing what filled my cup rather than worrying about anybody else. And when I got home, Dan picked me up and we went and picked up the kids from school, and all of them flung themselves into my arms and gave me big hugs. And that filled my cup even more. My heart was overflowing because I knew that I was coming back with a full heart, and those kids really appreciated me being back. And even my 12-year-old, in front of all his friends, came and gave me a big hug. So I knew that he'd missed me as well, which was really, really nice. It was really nice to be able to come back fresh after having such a wonderful time with my best friend. And I don't think that mums should beat ourselves up for doing things like that. It's such an important part. And I don't go to Singapore every couple of weeks, but and this is the first time I've been away from the kids for such a long time, and even going overseas is the first time I've been overseas by myself. So there was big things happening everywhere, but and also I've been working up to this for a long time. I knew she was leaving for about a year, so, and I knew that I wanted to do it, to go and to visit her. So it's not something that I do every day, big things like that, but I always carve out some time for myself in each and every day, so that I can connect back with Kristy, and not just Kristy the mum or Kristy the wife, Kristy the person. And I encourage you guys to do the same. Carve out that little space of time and try and think about how you can enrich you enrich your children's lives by enriching your own life, and doing things for you. And I believe that's really, really, really important in being able to manage life and manage your job as a mum. So I hope that you get something out of my insights about mum guilt versus self care. Maybe I should make a new thing called mum care. And yeah, we'll see you next time.